What's good, everyone? And welcome to Natural Languages, and welcome to a new episode of this TPRS Comprehensible Input course for teachers. Okay, and as I mentioned in the previous episode, I'm gonna use Spanish as an example of how to teach a language. Okay, because that's my native language and the language I teach the most. So in these videos, I'll be the teacher teaching you Spanish, right? And but along the story, I'll explain everything I'm doing while I'm doing what I'm doing, while I'm using gestures here, while I'm using pictures there. Okay, just to help you understand what's behind my thoughts or what's behind my strategies when it comes to helping my students actually acquire the language. All right, and yeah, so let's get into the episode. Okay, and yeah, we'll continue with more details about the story itself. All right, so let's go. Perfect. So here's the story that I started to create in the previous episode. In the first lesson of this course. So if you didn't watch it, I'll leave it up here so you can access it. But basically, like I said, I'm creating a story in Spanish. So 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 I can tell you everything I'm doing or what I do on a daily basis to help my students learn the language, why I use gestures, pictures, and so on. Okay, and like I said before, because of the similarities between Spanish and English, which all my students speak already, because either they're native English speakers or they're from another country, but for the most part, if they're interested in learning Spanish, they already speak English, right? So I know words that sound similar or that are written similarly, they're going to understand, right? So I can get away with way more than if I wanted to teach, I don't know, Hungarian or Finnish or Arabic or okay. So if that's the case for you, I'll also talk about it, during the course, but you'll probably have to rely more on pictures and a lot more gestures and so on, right? Because, as you can see in the example already, and as you will continue to see, the similarities between languages, between English and Spanish, really help, right? Because I can write things down, and right away, my students are going to understand most of the time. Okay, and also I got experience with it, so I know which words I can use for them to better understand what I mean, and so on. Okay. All right. So before we get into it, I'll repeat the most important thing here, which is that comprehensible input is the key to the entire process. Okay, so all you need to worry about is communicating in a way that is comprehensible for your students. That's it. Okay, that's the most important thing. If they understand what you're saying, the process is working. All right, then we'll get into how to make it more interesting, how to make it even compelling, so they even love the process, which is key in the long run, right? But you know, let's start with how to make it comprehensible, which is the key to the entire thing. All right, so let's continue with the story. And yeah, what I usually do as well is from one class to the next, like at the beginning of the next class, we'll just go through the story again, or through the, I don't know, the last few sentences or the last few pages of the story. So we all remember what it was about and the little details and so on. But again, always focusing on meaning, not on form. All right, that's also important to remember, that we're here to convey meaning to the students, right? So we don't need to, not just we don't need to, but we're not helping them if we're focusing on form, even if just little pieces here and there, like this one's plural because no, just don't do that. Right? Just rely on meaning. Okay, all they need is understand what you're talking about, understand the story. All right, and we'll try to make it interesting and even compelling to help them focus even more on meaning. But I'll talk about how you can actually do your best to take them off of form as much as possible. All right, if that makes sense. All right, so let's get back to the story. La historia de un hombre que se llama Juan. Juan es un hombre que vive en Barcelona, España. Juan es un hombre muy especial. Juan habla, again, this one's pretty much universal, but whenever you're introducing a new gesture that you're going to use, you know, you can just tell them that what this gesture means at the beginning, and then just use it all the time from that point on, right? But just it's important that they know what you mean with that gesture. And like I said, with this one, I've never had to explain it, I think, because it's pretty universal, right? But all the gestures are not so obvious, depending on the culture or the country, and you know, we might use different gestures. Anyway, but along with the gesture, the context of the story is going to help a lot because, you know, Juan habla 5 idiomas: portugués, francés, español, japonés e italiano. ¿Sí? And still, if you, like, I talked about in the previous lesson that with adults, which is what I'm going to talk about because that's because I teach adults, okay? Adults are going to tell you they don't understand most of the times, okay? And those times in which they don't, you're going to get better and better at reading their faces, all right? So, well, and the whole point is, even if they don't understand the reference, the context, you can go with, you know, because I'm talking about Juan speaking 5 languages, right? In this case, but even if they didn't get it, even if they're confused about whether I'm talking about the languages or the nationalities, you know, obviously, right after the gesture, meaning to speak, it's pretty self-explanatory again. But, you know, if you see they didn't understand, you can always go with real-life examples. So, portugués se habla en Brasil, en Portugal, en Angola, en Mozambique. Francés se habla en Francia, un poco en una parte de Bélgica, en una parte de Suiza, en algunos países de África, etc. ¿Sí? Español se habla en España, en Colombia, en México, right? So, you know, you use real life examples to help them understand what you're talking about. Okay, perfect. And now, again, just little questions here and there that I use to keep creating the story, but with really simple answers in which the students are going to answer those questions so they feel part of the creative process as well. And here's an example. Juan habla portugués con acento portugués de Portugal o con acento brasileño. Again, it's a simple question, and once again, the most important thing is for them to understand what I'm asking, and all they have to say is portugués or brasileño, right? So I'm not forcing them to speak the language when they're not ready for it, you know, which is the case for all beginners and even intermediates and so on, right? And I'll mention it again because I think it's important. I think it's important not to force output, okay? It'll just show up naturally when they've gotten enough comprehensible input. Okay, so again, comprehensible input is all we need to focus on as teachers. Okay, so in this example, let's pretend one of the students said brasileño. Okay, so now let's continue developing the story. Juan habla portugués. Opa. Con acento brasileño porque vivió en Brasil. ¿Sí? No. Juan habla portugués con acento brasileño porque vivió, okay? And now again, this is the one I use all the time, and I think is useful and it works well. Like I'll tell them whenever I use this gesture, like pointing backwards, it means I'm talking about the past. Okay, that's it. Don't worry about specific tenses. Don't worry. No, just about the concept of the past. Okay, so I'm talking about something that happened in the past. And I tell them, don't worry about the specific verb tenses. Don't worry. The context is going to tell you. All right. Because again, I want them to focus on meaning. So I want them to realize in this case that we're talking about Juan that lived in Brazil. Okay. But again, this is the gesture I use, but you can use any other gesture as long as you let them know beforehand so they know what you mean. Okay. But that one works well. Juan habla portugués con acento brasileño porque vivió en Brasil durante 10 años. ¿Sí? De 1995 hasta 2005. 10 años. ¿Sí? Perfecto. And again, I just I use the numbers here, but you can actually write it down and just use the gesture. But as you can see, it's all about using gestures, pictures, real life examples, numbers that are going to help you understand, right? Even if they don't know what años means, they might be confused. Is it years or months or days? Again, if he speaks Portuguese, it makes sense for it to be years, right? So right away, the context of the story, the context of what we're talking about makes sense for it to mean years, right? But still, I'll just use this, from 1995 to 2005. So they go like, oh, okay, so that means years. So it's about, and again, I'm trying to explain everything I'm doing, but it's not like whenever you're teaching the lesson, you're gonna have to think about every single thing every day, right? Like, with overtime, you get better at it. You understand that if you use this specific word, they're going to understand. If you use this other one, they probably won't. So you get used to it. And whenever you talk about years, you can use actual years for them to understand. Which words, and they're going to understand because of the similarities between English and Spanish. When context is going to help and when it's still not enough. Things like that. So don't worry, just it might sound overwhelming, but I'm a little bit, I'm sort of overthinking what I'm doing to let you know. I'm explaining every single thing I'm doing, but it doesn't have to be that mentally exhausting. Okay. All right. Perfecto. Juan vivió. So, another great opportunity for a question. Okay. So, Juan vivió en Brasil durante 10 años. Okay. Y una pregunta. Pregunta, yeah, and here I'll just highlight the question mark so they know it's a question. Una pregunta. ¿En qué ciudad de Brasil vivió Juan? And they might not understand the question right away. They might not understand the word ciudad. I don't know. So again, real life examples and context going to help. ¿En qué ciudad what I do in this case is I give them options. ¿En qué ciudad de Brasil vivió Juan? En Sao Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, Brasilia. So I give them options. And then, they can go ahead and say Sao Paulo, Rio, or Brasilia. Or they can, if they know other cities, they can, create their own answer. Because again, all I'm asking them to tell me it's the name of a city. So they don't really need to speak the language in order to answer that question. Okay, so that's something that I really want to focus on. I want to repeat it as many times as necessary because it's important. Not to force them, because I've talked about it many times, but I think the main cause of frustration for a language student, and I see it every single day, even in myself, is not being able to communicate the way you'd like to on any given point. Okay, so if you're forcing output, even if they're enjoying the class, even if it's going well, they're gonna feel frustrated because you're forcing them to speak when they're not ready for it, and because they can't communicate the way they'd like to, they think it's their fault. Even if just subconsciously, which is the most dangerous way, right? But I think subconsciously, in a way, you start thinking that it's your fault, and or the process not working, or I'm just not good at languages, and it comes from trying to communicate before you're actually ready for it, right? So as much as possible, I try not to force it. Okay, continuamos. So now let's say that the student told me Rio. Okay, perfect. All right, Rio. Muy bien. Entonces, Juan habla portugués con acento brasileño porque vivió en Brasil durante 10 años. Muy bien. Juan habla francés porque... Una pregunta. ¿Porque vivió en París, por ejemplo? ¿Porque tiene un amigo francés? ¿Sí? ¿Porque le gusta ver la televisión francesa? Yeah, francesa. All right. So again, I'm giving them options. So again, so they feel part of the creative process. I think it's important. While I'm gonna do most of the talking, like 95% of it, with little questions like this that we keep creating the story, you're gonna feel part of it, while at the same time I'm not forcing output again, because they just have to choose one of the options, right? So I can even go as far as opción número 1, vivió en París. Opción número 2, tiene un amigo francés. Opción número 3, porque le gusta ver la televisión francesa. Okay, so all they have to say is option 1 or option 2 or option 3. Okay, it's that simple. Or they can even, so I use the examples to give them context so they understand what I'm talking about. Okay, and to give them more input. But they might be looking to create their own answer, so they feel like they're even more involved in the story, in the creation of the story. Okay, so this is the point in which I actually allow them to use English or the target language here, as long as I understand it, of course, but English works. Back to the same idea of not forcing output. Okay, and it's gonna be like 3-4 sentences in the entire class. So it's not gonna disrupt the rhythm of the class. Just little, because they might have a creative idea that's actually gonna make them enjoy the story even more, if that makes sense. Okay. Pues Juan habla francés porque le gusta ver la televisión francesa, ¿sí? Por ejemplo. Y su programa favorito es un programa de viajes. Sí. Su programa favorito es un programa de viajes. And again, here, they might not know what, I mean, again, with experience, I know they're going to understand all of this, you know, but I'm not sure about if they're going to understand viajes, okay? So I can use real life examples again, you know, viajes. So Juan vive en Barcelona, ¿sí? Y a Juan le gusta viajar, ¿sí? De Barcelona a Miami de vacaciones o de Barcelona a Italia para visitar el Coliseo de Roma, por ejemplo, right? And if still they don't understand, you can use, again, even if it's Spanish English, in which I can use a lot of words that they're going to understand because of the similarities. And I'm also going to have to use a lot of pictures, right? So I'll just, you know, go to Google, find a picture, and well, I mean, usually when I'm teaching, they can see my screen as well, so they're going to see the picture right away. But for the sake of this, for the sake of this video, I'm just gonna paste it here, okay? So you go ahead and paste the picture. So su programa favorito es un programa de viajes, you know, and picture and the context that I talked about, they're going to understand. Okay. So again, as you can see, I'm gonna keep explaining everything I'm doing to help you understand how the process works, but it's all about the same thing. It's all about making it comprehensible with any tool you can use, except for except for translation. I couldn't think of the word. So we want to use gestures, pictures, real life examples, context to help them understand what we're talking about, and not translation, because if we're translating, they're not actually understanding what the words mean in Spanish in this case, but they understand what I'm talking about because of the English words, of the English word, right? So I don't think it's helping them. Of course, you know, if for whatever reason there's a specific word that is more abstract, right, and it's more complicated to find a picture to explain what it means, you can use it here and there, like translation, but you know, it's as little as possible, I'd say. Okay. So, su programa favorito es un programa de viajes que se llama no sé, viajes infinitos, por ejemplo. Okay. Y el episodio favorito de Juan, again, episodio and favorito are cognates. So an English speaker is going to understand what I'm talking about, right? And we're talking about the context. I mean, and we're talking about a TV program, so the context is going to help as well. But if the language you're teaching, it's a language in which the words to talk about his favorite episode are completely different to English, Spanish, or the languages your students are used to communicating in. So I don't know, you can go with el episodio favorito. You can, I don't know, design a heart to make it, you know, you design a heart, or you talk about your, for example, I don't know, you can talk about your favorite taste being vanilla, right? I don't know, or you can sorry, just put up a picture of ice cream, okay, and you talk about chocolate, vainilla, blah blah blah. You say, mi sabor favorito es vainilla. You know, it's true. So again, so they understand favorito, right? So, you know, so you use gestures, right? And el episodio favorito de Juan es el episodio de Indonesia, por ejemplo. Okay. Y en este episodio, ¿sí? los reporteros, ¿sí? And again, reporteros, you can just put a picture. Yeah. And here, well, I mean, this is reportero or periodista. It depends, if it's from. We use both in Spain, but that's, I'm explaining this to you as the teacher, but you don't have to do that, okay? So en este episodio los reporteros viajan a las islas de Sumatra, Java, etc. en Indonesia para visitar a personas francesas que viven en Indonesia. So as you can see, a lot of similar words, a lot of context, okay? And, again, they might not understand what islas means, but you tell them about Sumatra, Java, and still, they might not love traveling and geography as much as I do. That happens all the time because I'm just a bit of a freak when it comes to that, okay? So I'm a bit of a nerd. So I just, go to Google Maps and show them, right? And right away they're going to understand, okay, so that's an island, because you go to Google Maps, you point out the islands and, they understand. So here's an island, here's another island. So, and like I said, once you've created hundreds and hundreds of stories, you know how to help them understand what islas means, right? For example, and so you get better at it, and okay, so for this you need a picture. For this particular thing, you can go to Google Maps. For this other thing, you can just use a gesture. You get really better at it, and it's more natural, and you don't really need to think about it live as you're teaching, right? That's back to what I was mentioning before. Like, I'm explaining everything I'm doing to help you understand the process, but you're not gonna have to do that. You're not gonna have to go through that thinking process in every class. That'd be exhausting. All right. Okay. So, So I think that's good for today. All right. We'll continue with the story again, and of course, when I'm teaching Spanish, we can cover a lot more of the story in an episode. But in this course, I'm explaining what I'm doing all the time, which I usually don't, of course, when I'm teaching the language, because again, I want them to focus on meaning, right? So I don't explain anything related to grammar and form at all, because not only do I think it's not helping them, I'm actually starting to think that it actually gets in the way. So but that's that's for another episode, okay? And I actually talked about it in a podcast episode that I'll leave somewhere here, okay? So in case you're interested. So we'll leave it here, and as usual, there's the comment section. Feel free to send me your comments, your questions, your suggestions, your ideas, any specific topics you want me to cover on future episodes, anything, because I really, really enjoy this process of helping other teachers, because that way we're going to help more and more students realize that they can learn any language when join the process, and that it's not the hard working, boring process that we were told it was. Not at all. It's actually the opposite. And believe me, because I've been on both sides, I've been frustrated tremendously when I just, you wouldn't believe it, but I struggled to communicate in English for quite a while, and that's after 15 years of studying English in primary school, high school, or college. So, it's like day and life. I mean, day and life. It's like day and night, It just, I can I've been talking about it, and I will continue to do so, as much as I can because I've felt it myself. And the difference between loving the process every single day and, getting to continue to improve on your favorite languages while you listen to podcasts that you're interested in, while you listen to stories that other teachers create for people like you, while you watch your favorite series, while you read a book, you know, it is a completely different animal. All right. Anyway, so yeah, like I said, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next class of this comprehensible input course. And like I said, feel free to leave your comments down below. Whatever goes through your mind that you think I can help you with, or even suggestions that you have, I'll be more than happy to take a look at them and help you out if I can. So thank you so much and see you soon. Bye bye.